we ready to call to order here?
6:30.
Somebody's typing. David, would you like to call the meeting to order?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I've got my virtual hammer here, so we'll call the meeting to order here for the April 7th, 2020 meeting of the City Conover Planning Board. First order of business is a review of the minutes from the March 3rd meeting. Everybody.
David, could we do the roll call first? Make sure everybody.
I'm sorry, sure, that'll be fine.
Mr. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Here.
Mr. Dwiggins.
Here.
Mrs. Reynolds.
Here.
Mr. Kiesler.
Here.
Mr. Goins.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Beal.
Here.
Good.
I'll go ahead and announce we have two other guests, Richard and Gino and Will Warren are also on the webinar.
Okay, very good. Then we'll proceed to approval of the minutes. Again, has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? And if so, any questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Okay, did y'all get those? I missed them.
Yeah. Hey, this is Corey. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
And a second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, minutes are approved. We have no old business. We'll go on to new business. We have consideration of a conditional zoning request. Alan, if you'll take a stand.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, members of the board, members of the public, if any, who are joining us remotely. Richard Angino and Will Warren are on the line joining us, and they are with Third Wave Housing. They are applying for a conditional zoning approval to develop a residential community with 60 apartments and associated community facilities. This is a site that is currently vacant and wooded. Is this thing working? Okay. This is a zoning map. This is showing the site. It's right across from the Walmart. There's a wooded track here along Zelkova Court, and this is addressed as 160 Zelkova Court. I think that's right. Well, 201, 160 Zelkova Court. About 3 acres, and it's a split zone between MX and a corridor commercial in the front. At one time in the past, the site was to be a mixed-use development back around 2008, I'm told. It got approval, but was never built. So since then, the site has lain vacant until now with this proposal. This project is a conditional zoning because it exceeds the 15-unit residential threshold that we've set up in the Conover zoning code. So everything of that scale or larger becomes a conditional zoning to be approved. So what Third Wave Housing is proposing then is a market rate residential apartment project. It will utilize a single structure and be 4 stories tall with an elevator, outdoor space, and parking for a number of units. And this is a site plan. It's overlain with the aerial, so you can kind of understand the relationship to Walmart. This is the Walmart parking lot. This is the Walmart facade. And these are the out parcels. Here's the gas station and 55 Burgers and Zaxby's. And this is all vacant in front of it. So it's set back from 16 here by 1 street. The proposed development, and this is where Third Wave can do a little better description than what I've provided here, but it's young professionals and other working folks is who they appeal to. However, they've described to me that over time, a lot of their projects are very convenient to seniors. So seniors tend to find their place suitable for their needs and well connected to the community and with access and stuff. And so being right across from Walmart and other kind of community amenities could be the right place for some folks. A site plan, if approved, becomes the appendix item C, exhibit C rather, and any other development agreements would be as an exhibit B. So we've provided those to our board to be reviewed and sort of part of the record, if you will. And those items of the record control this development going forward. You know that with a conditional zoning, we review a conceptual plan at this stage, at the entitlement stage. And if approved, we take final plans and issue zoning permit after that. We've had research in our community, Western Piedmont Council of Governments, supported by the Chamber of Commerce, and that has shown a continued need for a variety of housing options throughout Catawba County and Conover. So this is sort of a good time for us to see this housing development. As I said, the parcel is a little over 3 acres, and it would have stormwater requirements which would be met off-site on the neighboring tract. And I wanted to point this out here. This is the neighboring parcel that I'm pointing out here with the laser, just to the west. And there's been an agreement with that property to provide the stormwater services that this site would generate and be required to provide. So that goes along with this approval, is that stormwater would come on the neighboring site. And that was agreed to like 10 years ago when the original development on this said parcel was first proposed. The site will provide a new street section. It's going to be accessed off of Zelkova Court. And this is a right-of-way here. This was laid out when that proposal was built, and this stub-out connection will be street-like heading into this development. This is the residential building here. The parking is all provided at the rear of this building, and it kind of circulates around. There is a small connection here that is meant to be for emergency access. This was at the request of the fire marshal, saying that they prefer to have a secondary point of access here. Around this part of the site is more of the green space that would come along with this development. There'd be a small playground feature, picnic area, and then other lawn and green area. This is also green space all around the back, and there's green space in front. Now you notice there's a little interesting notch out in the right-of-way, and that's because that former development was going to have on-street parking, but that was never built. And what's out there today is a sidewalk and the street infrastructure well in front of that right-of-way line. So the street really runs right along here, but that little notch out for future would just be unused, and we're not proposing that be modified or changed. It doesn't have to be. Do you mind? Next slide. Okay. Oh yeah, let's do one more detail. I'm sorry, forgot I put this one in there. This one's a little harder to read the description, but it's a little easier to see the drawing itself. The parking, the right-of-way line kind of cuts in there. But the street really is built to this profile right about here. So that will remain. There's water and sewer out in Zelkova Court, so there's no need for extending infrastructure here. Okay, provided here are elevations. What I sent in the packet, you could zoom in and see color on that, but the tone of those is sort of a palette of earth tones. And that's what's proposed for this project. They'll have a mix of materials in the facade. There is some variation. Let's see here. Eric's trying to make that zoom in a little bit.
Nope.
Okay, maybe it didn't scan in color.
Nope.
Nope. I know the packet material had a color image in there, I thought. But what's proposed is a mix of materials so that the building has some variation. It doesn't read just like a big monolithic structure. It will have some portions of the structure that read forward and scale back. And the materials kind of are imagined or anticipated to kind of reflect those changes in the facade. There's brick components, there's cementitious siding, which cementitious siding is like the Hardy materials, Hardy plank, Hardy product, but that's a brand name. So cementitious siding in the format of horizontal, vertical board, and batten, and shapes in the gable details. Obviously the windows, there's other highlights with brackets and columns at the base of the building and at the central gable on each facade. This roof line, which is often quite large on an apartment project, is not visible on this structure. This one utilizes a parapet type of a roof line, and so there's no large roof line that will be seen in this proposal. As I said, in the building, there are also community spaces, which include a computer room and laundry spaces on the floors. Okay. Along with the materials, the Exhibit B, which is the development notes, and the site plan, which is Exhibit C, the building elevation becomes one of those regulating documents if this should be approved. And so the elevations have to be substantially in compliance with that. The site will include over 100 parking spaces, the green space, and like I said, that stormwater feature would be on the neighboring property. And if approved, this zoning would be corridor commercial conditional district. Now, one of the members of the board asked about what kind of housing are we seeing, in our community. And I know we've been spending some time on this because we've been working on our land development plan. We've discussed housing and the need for additional housing. Some would go as far as to say the lack of housing in Catawba County is really holding the county back. And it's creating concern for expansion of industrial and other industries in our community because there's just not the staff here, the people that can be hired and brought in to fill these jobs. So it's been it's like a little tension for expansions. And so, but we were kind of looking that over. So for single family and townhomes, in 2015, we only had 15 permits issued. In 2016, that number increased. We had a pretty good year. It was 28 permits were issued that year in 2016. 2017, a little slower for some reason. Could have been rates. Maybe the interest rates might have changed. I don't know, but only 15 permits were issued. In 2018, we had 36 single-family and single-family home permits issued. And then in 2019, we had a pretty good year with 44 units approved that year. So that's been growing. I'm learning that the Abbott's Green proposal that you all saw about a year and a half ago or so is moving forward, and that's on Rock Barn Road, 320 units, I believe, on that project. And also, you're probably aware that Y Station is probably one of these numbers for the townhomes. It's already been counted, but it's well underway today. So we're seeing some growth in housing here, and it's been something that we've talked a lot about. Council did review Fern Hill last evening that the planning board saw last month, and they did approve that unanimously for the location near the Food Lion and at Thornburg Drive. So I think staff that we're glad to see this interest in Conover. It seems that over the years, Conover was not in the crosshair, so to speak, of new development and new housing. And so that seems to have changed a little bit in the last few years. And it's probably due to the reputation of this community and the county for being a great place to work and find really good work, and a great place to live. So I think all the efforts that this community's put together to kind of identify and promote Catawba County is paying off. So with that, I can answer any questions. And as I said, I know that Will Warren and Richard and Gino are both on the line and would be happy to talk to you about more about their plan. I did include some slides from their, normally developers would bring their own materials with them, have their own slide, but just for the sake of this meeting today with the way we're doing it, I went ahead and put it in my PowerPoint, but hopefully you all had a chance to kind of scroll through some of those images, and it's something that our group may wish to comment on. Eric's pointing out that we do have some floor plans in here, and so you can see some of the variation in the front of the building. It'll have a variation, it won't read like a monolithic structure with lack of interest, that sort of thing. And then the material for third wave housing is also included. Any questions for me or Eric at this time from the planning board?
Are our mics on now?
Yes, just if you would state who you are so we can record that.
Okay, this is Mary Reynolds, and I do have a few questions for the developers. Can you give us some idea of the rental rates that you're projecting?
We do not have that at this stage. We have multiple different uses for this property, but we do not have that.
The rental rates of the actual apartments?
That is correct. There is multiple routes as to how we can how we can actually use this property as we're working our way through the process.
Okay, next question. Do you guys plan on including washer dryer hookups in the units?
Yeah, actually, every unit would have a washer and dryer hookup, as well as we have a fairly nice sized laundry common space. We're finding over time things are adapting, and we're having more and more people are using the common laundry versus bringing in their own machine.
Can you give me some direction on where that common laundry is? I could not find that on the schematic.
Yeah, actually, and to give you guys a little bit of background, if I can take like 2 minutes to give you on the building itself. We've historically built quite a bit of mills and other historic buildings over the years, and we found people love the lifestyle of the mills because they're elevator fed, they have common community spaces, they have a lot of activities that go on within them that's different than like a 3-story walk-up building, which is what most of everyone's building in North Carolina right now, other than the big metros. And so I was at the Goldsboro Main Street Conference like 4 years ago. And one of the discussions started coming up, do people love historic buildings because of the historic building, or do they love it because of the way the building is designed? And we started coming away with, in North Carolina, I've been doing this for 30 years, 20 years ago, the thought that we would have no more historic mills here in North Carolina was kind of a joke because we just were overloaded with them. And what we're finding now is as we're getting less and less historic buildings, we started saying, well, wait a second, do the people love the historic or do they love the lifestyle of the mills? And we've started building these new properties, which are basically urban infill historic mills. This is really what we're trying to get the best flavor, except it's brand new materials. And so as part of the design of this, and we're building our first one in Hickory right now, the idea is for them to have a very small footprint so that we're using the land efficiency so we can have more open space, and also finding that we can put these very close to existing residential, existing commercial spaces, instead of being on the outskirts in one of these sprawling kind of 3-story walk-up communities. We can actually put these closer to where people are. The demographics for North Carolina is getting older and older. We probably have 30-40% of our tenants will be seniors. And when you look at like 3-story buildings, that's usually they can be on the first floor and then the other 3 floors above it, they can't use, as well as the families who have to grab groceries up on them. So to answer your question, the way this is designed, when you're looking at the building itself, it has 2 wings. And in the center corridor, on the center section, is actually 4 stories of community space. And it starts off on the first floor, which is a community center, as well as the manager's full-time management office. As you work your way up the building, we'll have a standalone community room. We'll have a business center. I call it kind of the study hall because it's a place for people to do kind of what we're doing now, which is normally people aren't trying to do, conference calls and other stuff, but it's for people to do homework. It's for people to have a quiet space without TVs. The game room is usually more of a TV based. We'll have foosball and some of the other stuff on the other floors, and then we'll have a laundry room, as well as we have an interior fitness room. And the beauty of having these set up really as the historic buildings mill-wise is that all the floors are elevator fed. So if you're in a wheelchair, I always kind of refer to it, you can roll anywhere in this property. So you basically can jump in at any time, basically get into any of the different spaces. And so the center section of this will be actually that community space. And then we'll have residential units on both sides of it, usually 3 or 4 units each on each side of that.
Thank you.
This is Dave. A quick question. How many elevators are going to be in this building?
We'll probably have 2. It's nice to have 2 of them. So if one of them is down for some reason, not that modern elevators are down very often, but just in case, it's nice to have 2, just so we don't have seniors stranded if they live on the 4th floor.
Gotcha. On the material I've got here, it mentions on the proposal that it's a market rate residential apartment. Kind of going back to Mary's comment, you mentioned there's a lot of, I guess, kind of fluid how you deal with this property from a rate point of view. Does that mean there's potentially any kind of a subsidized feature to these apartments, or?
It's not subsidized, but it could be workforce housing.
Okay.
It depends where the marketplace is. These things take a long time to do. Generally, most of our properties take 3 to 4 years. And marketplace, pretty much a workforce housing or a regular market rate, both of those work with us right now in market studies.
Can you define workforce housing for me? I'm not sure what
Workforce housing is really tax credit property.
Okay.
It has a limitation. It depends upon the balance between what mortgage loans, what rents we can get in the local area, whether the marketplace works or not. We generally, just so you know, history-wise, we don't do metros. Our business has always been trying to figure out how do we get new housing into non-metro markets, and that's really been one of our expertises. And the balance there is just how much the balance of what people can pay for rents and how much mortgage can we get in order to make the thing work financially.
Okay.
And David, I might add something to that. Each year HUD provides each community, each county, a rate for their housing, and it's the area median income for a region, and it's rents are affordable, based on family size. So a two-person family, 3-person family, 4-person family, there's a scale there. But in general, workforce is considered to be, this is sort of like national trends, but 80 to 120% or so of area median income. So it's that sort of not the wealthy end of the scale, but it's more like your working folks who work a 40-hour week and can pay rent such that they're not expending more than 30% of their income on their housing costs on a given basis. So it's kind of like there's like a couple things coming together: price of unit, and then not overextending on housing. And that the market rate housing is typically in pretty short supply in most communities in North Carolina.
Yeah, and it's mostly due to displacement. Just Asheville alone is pushing out so many people that just can't afford to live in Asheville anymore. So your plumbers, your folks who were generally doing work there, who lived in the outer ring of Asheville, now find themselves pushed out even farther. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the marketplaces like Conover and Statesville and others really have a huge demand for housing at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Hey, Alan, this is Corey. I know you had said that the erosion measures had pretty much been looked at about that 10-year ago mark when all this was looked at originally. Was the intent on that catch basin to service both of those lots at some point?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Richard. You want to answer that?
Yeah, that is actually the vision. We were approached by a shopping center developer who actually owned the parcel that we're working on right now. They haven't been able to make this work as a shopping center strip center, and basically said, "Hey, do you think you could do what you're doing in some other places in putting a urban core building into this location?" They have basically an agreement with the prime seller, who is the owner of the 110 acres that's around there. And the idea is that and they're working on approval, you're probably going to see it in the next months or so for the front parcel, for them to build that as we don't know exactly what it is, but like a retail establishment of some sort. And the idea is that we would do our civil drawings together. We would design the storm pond to handle both of those sites together.
Well, that's great. And we, the option, that's the option of the developer to size that feature for both this development and any future development. That would be preferable. But of course, we're going to have to, manage just for this development for now until we see the whole plan and see that final submittal. We'll understand better, how we're treating that. But they're responsible for themselves. However, it sounds like a great plan to work together with that other site to plan ahead.
Yeah, we're assuming we'll be surrounded by other uses as time. So they have 110 acres there. So I'm assuming they're going to design it for both the front parcel and possibly have something beside us on the other side too.
Yeah, that could possibly be a lot of asphalt around there. So yeah, I was just curious. Thanks.
Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind as you're looking at the drawings, because we're putting a stub road in there in order to get to our driveway, but that stub road won't go anywhere. There's a stream that's actually, and it's down a hill and a stream that kind of add continuous masses. So we'd be really a dead end street at that stage.
That's, I'll show that, point that out. We're coming in here, but this falls pretty fast to a stream through here. Conover, City of Conover has open space zoning heading about this point, heading kind of northwest. And we haven't planned a greenway there yet that I'm aware of, but that zoning open space will kind of limit any other use there, but it follows that stream corridor, heading out to Owl Creek there.
One other question, Alan, if I may. This is Corey again. I noticed in the packet, it said that the height of this building was around 56 feet-ish, I think is what I saw.
That's about right.
And you said something about comparable to the size or the facade of the Walmart. Is that pretty much the same, or will it be higher? I'm just trying to get a visual of what that is in my head. Is that like Holiday Inn size?
It'd be close to the Holiday Inn size, I would say. The Holiday Inn might be a little taller than 4 stories, though.
I can't remember, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, the Walmart has, those sort of false facade gable fronts that are pretty tall above their floor. I'd say this might be a little taller, but it's comparable. The scale of the Walmart being so long, hundreds of feet long, this will kind of, in a way, not be out of scale with the Walmart.
Yeah, and also because we have a flat roof, it allows us to put the air conditioning condensers and a lot of other stuff that takes up land on the lower side that allows us to put it up top. And then we can concentrate more on having the green space, landscaping, and drainage around the building itself. So to give you an idea, since it has a flat roof in that sense, it would be about the same height as a 3-story with a traditional truss system roof on top of it.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
And then Alan's right, related to the siding, we've been very creative with how we do our exterior. There's 4 or 5 different profiles that we have, going all the way from board and batten to clapboard sides and some some board and batten and it's almost like a beadboard structures. We've been having some really all the buildings are built to Energy Star code, so we're constantly dealing with how do we make a tight building, but also make sure it breathes and that we have a healthy building. So we're kind of on the cutting edge of kind of doing rain screen type of exteriors, which is what we're doing in Hickory right now.
Richard, do you want to tell folks where that site in Hickory is? Just, they might be interested in to follow up.
Hickory's address system is crazy. Will's on the phone here too. We're actually at the neighborhood, and the easiest way I can explain where we are, we're at the neighborhood super center, the Walmart. We're actually beside that in a parcel that overlooks under the hillside there. Will, do you have the address that you could say?
An old
Yeah.
It's near the rec center, isn't it?
I think it's 1186 4th Street Court, Southwest.
Which
It's on the old 70, right? You're
Yeah, behind the Walmart grocery off Old 70.
yeah, and that one's that's 80 units. It's on about 3.5 to 4 acres.
Right.
It's the same story. It was used for another process before. And once we can all kind of get out and visit stuff, I'd love to show you guys it, because it's a really cool story about how we got that fit into a location that really nobody wanted to develop.
Okay. Richard, one question, I meant to ask this or even speak to it, if you don't mind, is talk about management, if you will, of this development. I think that's something that our community has always been keenly interested in is after the project's finished, how is it managed and make sure we've got a good, management team on site or how that works.
That's a really good question because I didn't mention that, but we're based in Winston-Salem. All of our team are based basically in Winston-Salem and Greensboro. And so we are basically, our circle is 2 hours around Winston-Salem. The management company is part of the old Weaver Management Company, which is Partnership Property Management. They're based in Greensboro. Our construction company is Rehab Builders, which is based in Winston-Salem. And basically, our architects in Winston and our civils, basically everybody's very close to this site itself. We've been noticing over time, because we had one of our elected officials on one of our future last properties ask us how many people are local related to our subs and our materials. And generally we've been within 50 miles of our site, we've been probably 60% of our subs and materials are within 60 miles of our site, which is pretty amazing. When we actually take the picture and make it a little bigger and look for North Carolina, we have about 95% of our materials and labor and everything is coming from North Carolina per se, which is kind of a cool number once we actually get the statistics on that to see about the foot place. We're definitely not putting people in buses and bringing them to North Carolina to build these things. Long-term management is, we're building these for long-term. We're not one of the types of organizations that basically are designing these to build them or start to build them and then flip them to a REIT and have somebody far away own them. We just have a team who likes to, invest in this and have the long-term income from these types of properties in our backyard.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
This is Mary Reynolds again, Richard and Will. Going back to the aesthetics of the property that you're planning to build. I'm curious about your reasoning. You mentioned it earlier with your introduction about the long spanning type of facility versus multiple buildings. I personally have a real concern about the aesthetics of this long sweeping type of building sitting right next to a long sweeping building monolith, as someone has already described. How do you guys plan to address that? I've seen your schematics, and I know that the variation of materials play a part, but thinking about a single building versus multiple buildings to make it feel more like a residential area than an apartment, quote unquote, complex.
Yeah, well, actually, there's no really ability to make this multiple buildings on this site. It's about 3 acres. So we are fitting the most that we could and within that site in that. It's an aesthetic. Some people love these buildings. I mean, you go to Charlotte, Winston, and other places, this is the only type of building in the metros that's getting built right now. It's a love it and hate it. Some people don't like the big buildings. Same as some people don't like historic buildings when we do a big mill. I've had people move into those and actually after a month say, historic buildings aren't mine. And then I have other people who would spend their whole, 10, 15 years living in historic buildings and absolutely love it. So it's choice. It's definitely not for folks who want to live in a townhouse or have a yard for their dogs or other types of thing. But what we're finding is as the demographics is changing in North Carolina, we're having so many more seniors and single families head on. We were looking for just a nice, safe place. The beauty of the building is it basically has one main entrance. It has 3 entrances that are generally key locked that the tenants can use. So a lot of people like it for security. We have a full camera system that runs within the property. So we are constantly recording what's going on. But it's not a townhouse type of product. And that's generally for certain people. At the same time, you have the ability to make the units more affordable than you would if you do a really low density kind of the traditional kind of sixplex or townhouse type of product. That's getting more and more expensive where people just can't afford it. And for our general people who live in North Carolina, we're getting to the point where new construction on the townhouses now is available just for like the top 10% of earners.
One other thing about the site or the site plan is it will have landscaping. We provide these elevations. However, no one ever gets to really experience the elevation, type of view once a building is built. You're always seeing it at a perspective. And in this case, from the street, let's say it's on Conover Court, there will be trees and other things planted on that street side, in addition to the street trees that might already be there or be required. That would sort of soften the effect of that large structure. So I don't know if that helps at all with that conversation.
This is Dave. I understand that we've always looked very carefully at the aesthetics of anything we look at here. Looking at this, I understand Mary's point. But also see this as being somewhat of a little bit of a diversification of what we usually see. Something that's a little different, and given where it's located next to the interstate interchange, I'd rather almost see a structure like this next to another large building and something that might be a little more residential focused already. But I think your point's well taken. Some people love it, some people don't.
I'll just add just a little bit of perspective on that building. I just scaled, just roughly looking at satellite imagery. Walmart is over 600 feet long, and our building is less than 300. So granted, it is a large building. Both of them are large buildings compared to a house or something. But we are nowhere near going to look like what Walmart is. We're less than half of that, and not near as deep. So we're not on that same scale.
Is that you? Yeah.
Thanks. That was Will Warren.
And to put it in perspective, basically our new construction, we do some 3-story walk-ups. They're generally about 180 feet long to 200 feet long for breezeway type of buildings. And they're about, the 3-story is about as tall as this building is here. So we're not an extreme size. It's tough to see it in the pictures. You almost have to see it in real life. Or I should say the drawings, it's tough to scale it in your mind, but it's better to see it once they were actually built.
Hey, this is Corey again. Now, all access to this building, did I understand, is going to be from the rear? There will be no access from the Walmart side?
At the
entryways or doors, which side will be the main focus for entry?
The main entry is in the front, which is from the parking lot side.
Okay, that's the opposite of Walmart, right?
It is the opposite of Walmart. We would like to, and that's why I kind of said these are conceptual drawings for the floor plates. Because what I'd like to do is, as we're learning, this approval process, and as we're learning how we fit into this site, I would really like to fit a back entrance that we can actually do a sidewalk and connect to the Walmart section. Because we have the sidewalks, it's just the drawings you have now are really preliminary related to the building. But we told Alan, this is at least give you guys an idea of what we're thinking about. But I still want to play with it and see if there's some way. The one we have in Hickory, we actually have the community space goes from the front to the back, and you can use either way to get in and out. So we're still playing with this one.
Yeah, my reason for asking is I can just foresee living in Charlotte for 4 years of my life next to a grocery store. I can see the fight coming up with people parking in Walmart, to visit or whatever. That was why I was asking. If the entryway is on the opposite side, then I think it would be less likely that people would want to park in the Walmart and walk across the street.
That's a good point. Now, keep in mind that the street there actually has a median in it already and a lot of landscaping. So you would really have to work in order to park in the parking lot for Walmart and walk to our building.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Oh, they will. And they'll make a path wherever the clear way. That's why we usually try to figure it out on that side.
I mean, we always used to say when I went to UNC Charlotte, they never put a walkway. They just let people decide where it went, and where the grass got wore out, that was where they put a brick path.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where people went. So
Corey,
we'll figure it out eventually.
Corey, you're saying that you think it would be a better project if it had the double entrance or the through entrance on both sides?
I'm just trying to caution against the thought of making it to where it's easily accessible from the Walmart side, because I think people might use the excuse to park in the Walmart, and then we're not going to have anything. I want this to be a good neighborship between Walmart and the buildings, and I don't want it to be a constant battle potentially with people wanting to, especially if you have younger demographics that maybe could afford it or something. They're having people over parking in the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah. It's a fair comment.
There's a little bit of green space here at the Walmart, on this corner, so it's not so direct, as some developments might be. It's got a green corner there in front of the Walmart, heavily planted. You kind of drive by and forget it's there, but it's pretty thick. It's kind of seeing that aerial.
Yeah, just a comment.
Yeah.
Great comment.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, do we have a motion to approve the conditional?
Is there any, David, we might just check to see if there's been any comments.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, public comment. Do we have anybody?
So we've had it online.
Public hearing yet, and see if there's any comments online.
We haven't received any comments online, and no one has phoned in either, which is also available to the public. So apparently no comments.
Then we'll close the public hearing. All right. And then moving forward, do we have a motion to approve the request? Everybody on?
I'll need it, but I don't have it.
Do we have a motion to approve yet?
It should be.
I have about the paragraph.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find back here. I'll make it if I can flip back to it.
Yeah, I don't know where it's at either.
I've seen it somewhere in the packet, but,
Hold on, I think I can.
all right, I found it. This is Ken. I move to approve the rezoning request R20-4 for 160 Zalcova Court Northwest from CC Corridor Commercial and MX Mixed Use to CC-CD Corridor Commercial Conditional District, and find that the request is reasonable and is in the public interest because, one, the proposal is for market rate residential units which have been identified as a need in the community, and two, the land development plan recommends a variety of housing options and a new investment in housing to support the growth of the city and the tax base.
Do we have a second?
This is Corey, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign? Okay, motion carries. Next item, informational items, permit reports. Alan?
Eric, did we have that on here? I can't remember if I put it on. I think it's in the staff materials. Didn't have a bad month. Here it is. Thank you very much. We had a permit value of about $1.5 million last month, and we had a very large home come in for a permit in Rock Barn, so that brought us up. But we had several other new constructions or alterations, expansions around residential focus.
Hey, Alan, this is Corey.
Yep.
If I may, I don't know if Richard and Will want to hang around for the rest of this or not. I just wanted to maybe give them the opportunity to drop if they wanted to.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
Fellas, I'll give you guys a call tomorrow, okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Since there's Exco America had another permit, they've been expanding within their facility. They were taking up about 50% of their structure, and they've grown so much that they are actually taking over more space within their own facility and doing more investment there. So we had a permit for $55,000. I think that was for overhead crane installation, but we've had them over the last year or so for additional electrical and other uses in the Exco site. And I will say, in addition to the sort of the getting off the ground with the apartments on Rock Barn Road, we have issued a zoning permit for our house development over on Punch Loop Road, which is another conditional zoning that was approved, I guess about a year ago, maybe in the fall, winter. Anyway, we've reviewed the plans for that. It's moving forward for the structure, and so that was released for zoning approval. So that's nice to get that one off the ground. We're currently in the final review stages of plans for interstate phone 305 Comfort Drive. That also came through as a conditional zoning recently. So things are happening in spite of the coronavirus fears. And we hope to, pick things up and keep things moving the best we can in Conover.
Sounds good. Anything else for the good of the order?
We really appreciate you all being willing to participate in our meeting this way. I really like this format with the WebEx, and thanks to Chris Niver for helping put that together, and Eric in the background there. Appreciate you both a lot. And if we have some things come up next month, we might just, for the sake of this time period we're in, we might just avoid having a May meeting unless we have something compelling that just has to be heard right away. I think we'll try to defer a May meeting and just plan on a June meeting. Does that sound okay to folks? If we don't have anything come up?
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
That's fine. This WebEx has worked really well, though. I'll give you that. The audio has been fine, been great for me.
Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yep, very good.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll adjourn till June unless something else comes up.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
guys.
Thank you.
Everyone.
I'll take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
I'm in 2 to 3 Scott meetings today. It's been a way to do it.
Alan, are you still there?
A lot of things.
Yeah, he's still here.
It's just, it's a whole new world.
We're all gonna learn a lot about
We
how this
are,
works.
we really are. I was with a lady in Massachusetts, one of our,
Alan, can you still hear me?
Yeah, David?
A quick question, do y'all wanna, in terms of the minutes that I normally sign, is that something you wanna fax to me and have me sign and send back, or scan